started. So welcome to the second term of Journey to Wholeness, Coming Home to the Self. And we want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining us for term 2. And you can review the videos and notes from term 1, which basically covers the key concepts and the strategies to wholeness. Now, since this course is brand new, you and I have the privilege being the first ones to experience emotionally focused individual therapy in a group format. So we'll be producing audiovisual resources from the course for use in future groups so that organizations, individuals, they can purchase the recorded course material. Now, if you don't feel comfortable taking part in this, please turn off your camera and then turn it back on during the breakout room, which will not be recorded. Now, if you do want to help with producing the audiovisual resources from the course to benefit other people, you can indicate consent by just keeping your camera on. Now, since we also have a large Mandarin group, we will also provide translation to Mandarin using the Zoom interpretation function. So if you require the interpretation, you go down to the taskbar, open up the interpretation, and then you click on Chinese, and then you should be able to hear Jane, who is our interpreter for today. Now, little bit introduction. So I've been practicing family physician for almost 40 years. Now, when I first started, I was very naive. I thought, well, medicine's easy. There's a pill for every ill. So find the ill, give the pill, you're done. But unfortunately, the real world is not so simple. Many, many factors affect illness. I remember seeing a woman with an ulcer, and I asked her, what do you think is causing your ulcer? And she gave me a quick answer. It's my son. He's always misbehaving in school. I get multiple calls every week from his principal asking me to take my son home. Now, I realized I could give her medication for her ulcers, but I didn't have a clue how to help her with her real problem, her misbehaving son and the stress that caused. So I went back to graduate school to learn counseling, learn about marriage, family therapy, and later on I had opportunity to learn emotionally focused therapy, which it's not focused on symptoms, but growth. And since then, we have developed many courses for use in groups, and I've been certified as an international trainer with ISEC, and I've also had the privilege of training thousands of professional helpers over the past 12 years in EFT, in seminaries, medical school, and also right now we're working on developing the group format of emotionally focused individual therapy. Now, let's take a moment to introduce our co-hosts and also our group facilitators, and also thank them for their help. So maybe the group facilitators, you can wave to everyone. So we're really fortunate to have a group of very experienced facilitators. And also our co-host for today is James. So he's not only a certified emotionally focused therapist, he's also a supervisor in training. So James, would you like to say a few words about yourself? If you turn on your microphone.
All right. So thank you, Dr. Wong. So I am a registered psychotherapist, and I've been working under Dr. Wong for many years learning EFT. So Dr. Wong is a very experienced and skilled therapist and physician, and I've learned a lot from him, and it's a privilege for me to be able to learn this course with him, to share our knowledge together, and to help each and every one of you understand more about emotions and how it can be applied to individuals. So welcome, and hope we all enjoyed the learning together.
Okay, thank you, James. So attachment, neuroscience, and our daily experience cannot be separated. So this is what Sue Johnson says in our course textbook. So maybe James, you can explain what Sue says. Okay, turn on your microphone. Yeah,
Sorry.
here we go.
Welcome to the journey of wholeness, coming home to the self, psychoeducational group based on emotionally focused individual therapy that I developed with my colleagues. In this journey, new healing corrective emotional experiences are shaped through encounters with real or imagined significant others and parts of self, building a positive sense of self and other, and secure connections, two important foundations for mental health and well-being. I wish you well in your journey to wholeness as you come home to the self and find your place of belonging, security, and harmony within. You're in good hands. You're in good hands with Dr. Wong, one of our highly experienced and creative international trainers, guiding you in this journey. From Dr. Sue Johnson.
Okay, thank you. So that's the warm welcome from Dr. Sue Johnson. I think we missed this slide, so let's go back to the previous slide. Yeah, so this slide reminds us, neuroscience shows how our experience in relationships actually shape the development of our brain and how our neurons are wired together. So if you experience relationships in which others are responsive to your needs, especially emotional needs, then you can cope better with stress, stay emotionally balanced, and also interact with others in fulfilling ways. Conversely, if you experience relationships in which other people are not responsive to your needs, you might feel abandoned, neglected, dismissed, rejected, betrayed, or even abused. And then you have a hard time coping with stress. Frequently be in a fight, flight, or freeze mode, and also have trouble interacting with others due to your tendency to demand, to blame, to withdraw, or to avoid. So in the journey to wholeness, coming home to self, we will show you how to work with mental representations of important relationships in your life and in your relationship with parts of yourself to shape secure connections and a positive sense of self. Now, like all living creatures, our natural tendency is to grow, to be healthy, and to be whole. However, at times we may face blocks to growth and wholeness due to adverse experiences. So today we will review our course and course objectives, and we will also provide an overview of our journey to wholeness through the 3 terms and the 10 modules in each term. Then we will look at adverse experiences that can create self and relational blocks to wholeness. And then participants will also have the opportunity to do a self-assessment of adverse childhood experiences or even experience in adulthood that may be source of some of your blocks. And during the group time, you'll have the opportunity to get to know each other and to share adverse experiences that may result in blocks to wholeness in the self and relationship. So let's give you an overview of our course and review our course objectives. So with the COVID pandemic declared over, we're left with the worsening mental health pandemic. with a broken system, very limited resources. The only way we can meet the enormous mental health needs is to do more groups. So in the past few years, my brain has been busy figuring out how to develop a group version of emotionally focused individual therapy. So Journey to Wholeness, Coming Home to the Self, is our first version of this course. Now, in this course, we will frequently use word clouds to encourage participants to actively participate. Now, if you have a smartphone, you can just go to menti.com, enter the code on the screen, and then enter your response. If you're using a computer, you just click on the link or paste the link in your browser to open the word cloud and enter your response. Now, if you're unable to enter the word cloud, you can feel free to just use the chat box to type in your answer or turn on the microphone and just share. And your facilitator will help you put your answers in the word cloud, and then we'll take a look at everyone's answer in the word cloud. Okay, let me put the link for the first word cloud in the chat box. Okay, so if you have a smartphone, you can just go to menti.com, enter the number 67482682, or if you're using your computer, you just open the chat box, click on the menti.com link, and that will open the word cloud. So what I'd like everyone to share is to think of a couple words that describe what wholeness looks like and what wholeness means to you in your life right now. So take a moment to find a few words to describe what wholeness looks like and means to you in your life right now, and then you can enter it to the word cloud. And then we'll take a look at the word cloud. Okay, so we'll give everyone another minute or so to enter what wholeness looks like for you, what it means to you in your life right now. Okay, and we'll ask James, maybe you can summarize what people are entering in the word cloud, what wholeness means.
Sure.
So,
Calm, peace, balance, joy, acceptance, harmony, appreciation, being present, connecting all parts, healthy, love, strength, fulfillment, harmony, happy, ability to adapt, better understand myself, rational emotional balance, be self, belong, peaceful, authenticity.
right, so very descriptive, powerful words. And we also have to thank Stacy for sharing using the chat box. So inner peace, freedom to be our true, authentic self. Okay, so let's take a look at our slides and go back to our course objectives. So as we review our course objective, I want everyone to open up the second word cloud, and you can indicate how important each of these objectives are to you right now. Okay, so 1 is not important at all, 5 is very important. So again, let me put the link in the chat box. Okay, so again, if you use your smartphone, you just go to menti.com, enter the new number 6327-8607, or if you use a computer, just go to the chat box, click on the link, and that will open up the course objective, and you can rank how important, rate how important each course's objective is to you right now. Okay, so maybe James, you can talk about each of the course objectives.
Okay, so the first one is to view self, challenges, recovery, and wholeness from an attachment-based, humanizing systems perspective.
Right.
Second
So
objective.
our course will actually provide you the roadmap so that you know exactly where you are, where you want to be, and how to get there. So attachment integrates our understanding of our behavior, our cognition, and our emotions. So we humanize, we don't pathologize. We're focused on health, we're focused on growth, not symptoms. And it talks of a system, meaning we look at how we interact with other people, with the parts of ourselves, and how we affect each other. Okay, the second objective, James, you want to explain it?
Mm-hmm. Identify the self and relational processes, creating and maintaining distress and disconnection.
Right, and this part is very important because when we look at the process, then you will start to understand, aha, this is how I got to where I am now, and this is what I need to do to get to where I want to be in my life. So when you can identify the process under your experience, this opens up many paths to change. Okay, number 3.
Make alien, frightening, unacceptable emotions normal, human, acceptable, and manageable.
So here we're changing your relationship and your reaction to your emotion. Because often the problem is not our emotion, but it's how we respond to our emotion. We run away, we deny, we suppress, we avoid, and that creates all the problems. Okay, number 4.
Create new healing corrective emotional experiences.
Right. In other words, we're to teach you how to use these new experiences to start to rewire your brain. Okay, number 5.
Shape a positive sense of self and other.
Right. And we know when you can develop a positive experience of yourself and others, the change is permanent. It's going to be lasting. Okay, number 6.
Integrate and consolidate wholeness in self and relationships.
Right. Okay, so let's look at the workout to see how important each of these objectives are to you. So maybe James, you can summarize results here. Let's see.
Right.
All of them are very
Yeah, all of them are pretty high. The top 3 are number 1 and okay, now it changes.
Yeah, I guess people are still entering their
Yeah.
answers, so
Okay, well, maybe we'll wait a few seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so far, objective 4, 5, and 6 have the highest score, 4.6, and then followed by objective 1 and 2, 4.4, and then objective 3 is still very high, 4.
Right. Okay. It's nice to see that. So what we want to accomplish in the course is actually very important to each and every one of you. So let's go back to our slides. Okay, so what we like to do is think about our trip as going hiking in the forest, in the trails. For the summer, I like to go canoeing in the rivers and the lakes nearby. Now, in the old days, you had to prepare. How do you prepare for a trip? Well, you need a map, you need a compass, and a plan where to start and end your trip. Because nowadays, we just need our smartphone or GPS to access maps showing where we are and the path to where we want to go. So in our first term, we talked about preparing for the journey. So we help everyone understand the key concepts and strategies in the journey to wholeness. And we also build a conceptual framework for wellness and learning to use the tools and strategies to help us to move forward. Now, if you missed the first term, it's okay. We recorded all the sessions, so you can go to Thinkific, which is the e-learning system that we use, and you can sign on, and then we'll approve you, and then you can look at all the handouts, all the videos, even videos from audios from the first term. So in our first term, we introduced the map for our journey to wholeness, coming home to the self. And our map is attachment theory, which integrates our behavior, our cognition, our emotion, shows us where we are and where we need to go. Okay? So we discussed the link between secure connection and mental wellness and the importance of emotion as the target and means to change. And we also introduced the 5 key strategies to wholeness. Now, since this is very important in each of the terms, we will ask all of you to review it and also to commit it to memory. And to help you to remember it, we actually created an icon for each strategy. So we'll use our fingers, our left hand, to help us remember the 5 key strategies to wholeness. So maybe James and everyone, you can put up your left hand and James can help us review these 5 strategies using each of the fingers.
So the first one is focus on process, not the content. Second one, assemble emotion, not avoid. Third, create a new corrective emotional experience. Fourth, shape a positive sense of self and other. Fifth, integrate wholeness in self and relationships.
Right. So all through this term and the next term, we'll be applying these 5 key strategies to wholeness over and over again. So we look at the process, not content. We assemble the emotions. We don't avoid them. We create corrective emotional experience, shape a positive sense of self, and then we integrate wholeness. So in our second term, we're actually going to embark on this journey to wholeness. So we'll be identifying the blocks and also resources to wholeness, finding the stronger, the wiser, kinder other and part of self as a resource to wholeness, and also identifying the frightening, alienating, traumatizing other and part of self as blocks to wholeness. And I won't go through each of the lessons, but today we'll talk about self and relational blocks to wholeness, the frightening, oppressive, hurtful other or part of self. And then the next session we'll talk about resources. And then we talk about self and part of self, blocks, and then resources. Then we talk about ourself and a younger self, the blocks, and then self and older self, resources in nurturing wholeness, and then we start about ourselves, imagine others, and also real other significant others in our lives. So we'll be finished by the end of March, and then in April we'll start our last term, which is completing the journey. Now, just to clarify, when we say our journey wholeness has many stages, many parts, here when we talk completing journey, it means completing a stage or a part of the journey. The journey to wholeness is actually a lifelong journey, and these courses and groups are just the beginning, not the end. So each of us We'll acquire the tools and resources to continue the journey. Once we have the maps, the strategy, we have companion and our guide. So in the third term, our focus is on processing the blocks and accessing resources to wholeness and creating new experiences in which we feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure, to replace the old experience of feeling insecure, unvalued, frightened, alone, and hurt. And so now let's shift gears to talk about adverse experiences in our childhood and adulthood which can create blocks to wholeness. So we're going to watch a short 5-minute video which explains how these adverse experiences, especially those in childhood, when our brain is growing the fastest, affect our brain, our body, and our continuing pattern of behavior. So the video itself is in English, but I'll play the version with the auto-generated Chinese subtitles, which may not be 100% accurate, but hopefully is sufficient. So before we look at adverse childhood experiences, impact on brain, body, and behavior, maybe James, you can highlight some of the key learning points in this video.
Sure. So first point, our experiences affect our brain development. Second point, safe, stable, and nurturing relationships lead to healthy development. Third, stress that is frequent, chronic, and uncontrolled without any support or buffer is toxic. Fourth, toxic stress can impact social, emotional, cognitive function, risk of disease, and disability later in life. Fifth, this can lead to emotional distress, poor emotion regulation, greater impulsivity, learning difficulties, physical and mental health problems.
Right.
6, positive, supportive relationships at any stage in life can make a difference in preventing many of these negative outcomes.
Yeah, so as we watch this short video, reflect on your childhood, growing up, your life, and see if you can identify maybe you've experienced some of these adverse experiences that is blocking your journey to wholeness. And then you can write them down, and then during the group time you can share with your group members. Okay, so let's play the video. With the Chinese subtitle.
A child's experiences early in life are important building blocks for the developing brain. Genes, nature, are like the blueprint. They provide the basic framework for brain development. However, genes do not design the brain completely. Environmental influences, nurture, fine-tune how the brain works by shaping which brain connections get used. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent, whereas ones that do not get much use fade away. Together, genes and the environment build the foundation for all future development. Safe, stable, and nurturing relationships early in life lead to healthy development. But children's brains capture other experiences as well. Stressful events. However, not all stress is bad. Positive stress involves normal childhood experiences, like starting daycare or meeting a new person for the first time. This stress is essential for healthy development because it helps children develop coping skills and confidence. But when stress is frequent, chronic, and uncontrolled, it is toxic to children, especially when they do not have a caregiver to provide support or buffer the stress. Adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, such as abuse, neglect, exposure to intimate partner violence, parental depression or addiction, and poverty, are toxic stressors which could lead to lifelong changes in learning and behavior. ACEs early in development can impact social, emotional, and cognitive functioning, increased risk-taking behavior such as drinking and substance use, and increased risk of disease, disability, and social problems later in life. The question is, how do adverse childhood experiences impact a lifelong development? One of the most important systems in our body is our stress system. It's activated when we experience stress. We become alert, our heart rate increases, and so do our stress hormone levels, cortisol and adrenaline. Our body is ready to react, what is known as fight or flight. A short period of time after the stress is over, or if a child receives support from a caregiver, the stress response turns off and the body returns to a normal state. Adverse childhood experiences create stress responses that stay active, and without the support of a caregiver, the system has difficulty shutting off completely. This constant and prolonged activation can affect immune system functioning and increase the chances of sickness, infection, and disease. Prolonged activation of stress hormones is also toxic to the brain. Certain areas of the brain are more vulnerable to toxic stress, including the executive center or the brain's control center, an area important for solving complex problems, attention, reasoning, impulsivity, inhibition, and learning. A second area is the emotional center, the brain's alarm system, which is involved in processing and interpreting emotions and the ability to control impulses. The third area is the memory and learning center, the brain's filing cabinet, which plays a major role in learning and the formation and retrieval of memories. Science shows that adverse childhood experiences impact all of these brain centers. Behaviorally, what we begin to see is emotional distress, poor emotion regulation, greater impulsivity, learning difficulties, and physical and mental health problems. More recently, science has begun to look at how ACEs cause changes in gene expression through a process called epigenetics, which helps us understand how nature and nurture interact. Epigenetics causes changes in the way genes work without changing the DNA code itself. This occurs through chemical changes influencing how the code is used. In other words, genes are like the hardware in a computer. They determine the boundaries of what is possible. However, we need an operating system to tell the hardware what to do. Epigenetics is like the operating system directing the function of a gene's DNA hardware. The genes we are born with are the genes that we have for life, but experiences like nutrition, exercise, smoking, stressors, and relationships all affect our biology. Adverse childhood experiences are associated with epigenetic changes related to stress, brain development, cognition, and systems associated with mental and physical health. Changes that happen early in brain development are more likely to be enduring and are possibly passed on to future generations as well. The good news is that positive, supportive relationships at any stage in life can make a difference. However, supporting families and children early on will help prevent many of these negative outcomes. One of the key ingredients for healthy development is having warm, loving, and actively engaged caregivers. This involves promoting serve and return interactions, where caregivers actively and warmly engage with the child, making eye contact, responding to sounds, words, gestures, emotional needs, and sharing experiences like reading and play. Providing programs that support caregivers to strengthen these abilities are the blocks that build healthy foundations for life.
Okay, so we'll go back to our slide. So in summary, what are these adverse experiences? So three groups: abuse, physical, emotional, sexual abuse; neglect, physical, emotional neglect; and then dysfunction in the environment. Okay, so mental illness, incarceration, relationship problem, violence, addictions. So all these are adverse experiences. Now, this is a Canadian study of middle-aged to older people, and it shows that ACEs are very prevalent. So almost 62% of middle-aged older adults have at least one ACE. So that's by far the majority. And then, you look at the kinds of ACEs that we have, and it looks at the prevalence of each ACE and showing which are the common ones in Canada. So maybe, James, you can take a look at this and share what are the common adverse childhood experiences that older Canadian adults have experienced. So the blue line is male, orange is female, and then heterosexual and non-heterosexual population. So you want turn on your mic, James?
So there's one category. The first category is physical abuse. You can see the distribution between the four different categories. The second adverse experience is sexual abuse. And you can see the different breakdown between the four categories again. The third one is emotional abuse. The fourth one is neglect. Fifth is exposure to intimate partner violence. And then the next one is death of a parent. Can be an adverse experience. Parental divorce or separation. And the last category is living with a family member with mental health problems. And you can see the breakdown of the four different categories: male, female, heterosexual, and non-heterosexual in each one of those adverse experiences.
Right. And again, note how common these are, especially physical abuse, emotional abuse. Those are the probably highest one, exposure to violence. Now, if we look at other countries, the statistics is very similar. So this slide, Wales and UK also shows a similar prevalence of each of the adverse experiences. Now, adverse experiences, especially those in childhood, sets off a whole cascade that results in early death. And here we see in people who have 6 ACEs, their lifespan is shortened by 20 years. 20 years. Smoking won't do that. A lot of the diseases, heart, cancers won't do that, but ACEs can shorten someone's lifespan by 20 years. Now, many of symptoms that we experience or we see may also be the result of adverse experiences, especially those from childhood. And before we split into group, we'll have the opportunity for each of you to assess whether you have some of these experiences. Now, the impact of adverse experiences, especially those in childhood, it's severe. It affects our health, our at-risk health behaviors, and our physical and mental health. Maybe, James, you are like me, you spend most of life working in a health setting, and this is what we see around us, right? So what are these experiences and the consequence in terms of health, physical health, and mental health?
So you see, in terms of behavior, lack of physical activity, smoking, people using alcohol, using drugs, or missed work. In terms of physical and mental health, there is severe obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, sexually transmitted diseases, heart disease, cancer, stroke, um, uh, COPD, which is the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease for the lungs, and broken bones.
Right. And now the next slide shows us how each A increases the risk, right? So we look at all these health conditions on the left, and then we look at the number of ACEs from 0, 1, 2, 3 to 4 plus. And so you see almost in every health condition, as we increase the number of ACEs, the risk goes up substantially. So to almost 300%. So arthritis, asthma, cancer, COPD, diabetes, heart attack, kidney disease, stroke, visual problems, okay? They're all increased depending on the number of ACEs. And here's another one. Risk is associated with 4 or more exposures of childhood trauma and violence. And so substantial risk. Look at suicide attempts. 12 times normal if there are 4 ACEs or more. Drug abuse is 10 times normal. So we say there's an opioid, there's an overdose pandemic. It's probably an ACE pandemic underlying the overdose pandemic, alcoholism. Now, this slide reminds us, okay, people like you and I are very wise. Why? Because we invest our time, our money in this course called Journey to Wholeness. And this slide shows the return on investment in the Journey to Wholeness. And it's huge. If we can face and heal the impact of adverse experiences in ourselves and in others, we can overcome blocks to growth and blocks to health. We become more productive. We become happier. We have less anxiety. And we also stop passing on these adverse experiences to the next generation through epigenetics. So maybe, James, you want to look at some of these numbers? It's pretty impressive.
Sure. So if the ACEs could be eliminated, work productivity could increase by 61%. Suicide and life dissatisfaction could decrease by 67%. Anxiety could be reduced by 56%. So they're quite significant.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll finish off with a couple minutes talking about frightening, oppressive, hurtful, other or parts of self, right, that can block our journey to wholeness. Now, this is my summary of how these blocks can develop from adverse experiences in childhood and in adulthood. Maybe, James, you can explain this?
Our childhood and adult adverse experiences may lead to ways of coping and surviving that results in patterns of interaction with others and parts of self that leads to blocks in our journey to wholeness. These adverse experiences may be internalized as frightening, oppressive, or hurtful mental representations of others or parts of self. It is important to recognize these internalized parts and their origin in order to overcome these blocks to wholeness, secure connection, and a positive sense of self.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll look at each group of adverse experiences and also take a look at how it can affect our representation of other people, our parts of self, our coping strategy with other people and with our parts of self. Okay, so let's start with the category under abuse. Now, as you look at this table, circle the ones that you can identify with, okay? And then you can share that during the group time. So as we discuss each type of adverse experience, think about your childhood, your adulthood, okay? The impact of these experiences on your experience with other people and parts of self, coping strategies, and reflect on your personal experience, circle the ones that you can identify with, and you can prepare to share this with your group. Okay? So maybe James, you can explain the impact of abuse, what it does, and how it affects our representation of other people and parts of self.
Sure. So if you have experienced abuse as a child or adult, either physical, emotional, verbal, or sexual, then your representation of others would be dangerous, threatening, frightening, hurtful, big, powerful, insensitive, ruthless, and see the other as an aggressor. With parts of self, you see yourself as vulnerable, weak, small, helpless, powerless, voiceless, unconfident, all alone. You're a victim without any choice.
Right.
And how you cope, your coping strategies would be either fight or flight, freeze, dissociate, or please. So with others, you can be aggressive, demanding, critical, attacking, abusive, withdraw, avoid, not trust, shut down, numb out, not there, placate, satisfy, or appease others. With parts of yourself, you can also attack yourself, criticize, put down self, abuse yourself. Or to protect yourself, hide it, keep it a secret, dismiss it, disown it, avoid vulnerability, avoid your own feelings, fears, and needs.
Right. So remind everyone as we look at each of these slides, circle the parts that you can identify with, and you can share that during the group time, which will follow shortly. So I'll share an example. So we saw a young man in our clinic, and he remembered his father as being extremely angry. He's yelling and screaming at him, telling him how stupid, how useless and worthless he is whenever he lost something as a kid. Now, as a result of this emotional and verbal abuse, he felt that people were dangerous. They would hurt him. And around people, he would feel helpless and vulnerable. And now, as a young adult, he struggled with depression, with anxiety, often shutting down, dismissing his own needs in order not to trigger his father's anger. Okay, so the second group of experience has to do with neglect. So maybe James, you can talk about how neglect affects how we represent others and our parts of self, our coping strategies with others and with parts of self.
Sure. So if you experience neglect, either physical or emotional neglect as a child or adult, the way you see others would be uncaring, unresponsive, insensitive, self-centered, cold, or indifferent. The way you see parts of self would be I'm unworthy, undeserving, unloved, insignificant, not special, does not matter, shame, I'm a problem, I'm defective. The way strategies that you cope would be you disown it, suppress it, suppress feelings and needs, self-blame, shame for having these needs, having false guilt, make excuse for others. So your coping strategy with others would be justifying the behavior, finding excuse or reason or explanation, or accept them as normal, or disconnect, isolate, hostile, protest, act out, oppositional, or seeking attention seeking. Your coping strategy with parts of self maybe to blame yourself, deny it, invalidate your own feelings or needs, find reasons for being not good enough, try to be perfect in order to obtain attention and care, or you sink into emptiness, loneliness, or shame.
So again, remind everyone to circle the ones that you can identify with, and you can share your experiences when we break into the groups. So for example, a client of us was neglected by her family because she was illegitimate. So since childhood to now, she saw others as uncaring, unresponsive to her feelings and needs, and saw herself as unworthy, undeserving of anything good. And she coped by blaming herself, trying to please other people, please her family, and then she would sink deeper into shame, into loneliness, into emptiness, and into her depression. And so the last group of adverse experience has to do with the environment we grew up in, so the family dysfunction. So again, we'll ask James to look at the impact of family dysfunction, our environment, on how we represent others, and on our parts of self, and our coping strategies.
So if you have experienced family dysfunction as an adverse experience, either in relationship distress, mental illness, addiction, violence, or someone in your household may be in prison, when that happens as a child or adult, your representation of others would be they're unreliable, unavailable, unresponsive, unengaged, unempathetic. You will be in your own, they will be in their own world, untrustworthy, lack of understanding, support, care, and love. So parts of self, how you look at yourself would be I'm unvalued, not cared for or supported, understood, only focus on problems. Your rights and needs are denied, dismissed, inadequate, depressed, hopeless, anxious, or insecure. So coping strategies for family dysfunction would be you either under or over function. You either fix or rescue or help or care give, protest, to numb out, shut down, reach out and pull back. With others, you will lack healthy boundaries. You parentify. You act as parents, unable to speak up, trust and feel. You'll be indirect, confusing, having double messages, fearful. You need others for attachment needs or longings, or avoidant, unable to rely on or trust others. With parts of yourself, you may feel inadequate, depressed, hopeless. Your anxious parts may dominate. You struggle with identity, self-distract, self-numbing, addiction. You become dysregulated with emotions, behaviors, or attention. You feel alone. You fend for yourself or self-reliance.
And here I can think of an example. So an adult male who witnessed his parents arguing all the time. So he felt that other people were not reliable, they were not responsive, and he could only rely on himself for everything. So he was unable to share his feelings and needs with his wife, and all his emotions are expressed either as anger, frustration, or shut down. And soon, both of them developed depression, for both the wife and husband requiring treatment with medication. So he underfunctioned in his marriage, he shut down often, and he was unable to share his pain, was unable to trust his wife, and allow himself to feel his more vulnerable emotions and parts. So you see how this leads to disconnection with oneself and also with the people that be love. Okay, so before going into your breakout rooms, we'll give everyone opportunity to assess the various experiences that you may have encountered as a child or as an adult, and also evaluate the impact of these experiences, whether they cause any symptoms, and how they are affecting your representation of other people and parts of self, how you cope with others and your parts of self. And during the group time, you'll have the opportunity to get to know each other and share these adverse experiences that have resulted in blocks to wholeness in the self and in the relationship. Okay, so let's start by assessing your childhood. So you can take a look at this slide number 49 in the handout. Okay, so maybe James and I will take turns reading out. So maybe James, you can read the odd numbers, I'll do the even numbers. So you can, as we read it out, you can check off whether you've experienced that in your childhood, yes or no, and during your adulthood, yes or no.
Mm-hmm. So first one, you were hit, pushed, grabbed, slapped so hard, or had things thrown at you that you had marks or were injured.
Then number two, you felt afraid that you would be hurt, sworn at, insulted, put down, humiliated. So indicate whether you experienced that as a child and as an adult.
3, your private parts were touched, or you were asked to touch someone's private parts, or attempted oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse outside of a consensual relationship.
Number 4, you did not have enough to eat or clean clothes to wear and did not have someone to take care of and to protect you.
5th, you felt that people you lived with did not love you, see you as important or special, look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other.
Number 6, you or your parents experienced physical or emotional separation or divorce.
Number 7, you witnessed a person in your household being pushed, grabbed, hit, kicked, bitten, had something thrown at them, or physically threatened.
Number 8, someone you live with had a problem with addiction. Could be drinking, street drugs, gambling, pornography, gaming, social media, internet.
Number 9, someone you live with was depressed, mentally ill, or attempted suicide.
And the last one, someone you live with served time in prison. Now we'll go through the list of possible impacts of your adverse experiences. Again, you can do your rating as we go through it. So rate the frequency of impact on yourself using a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 is none of the time, 5 is often. And again, you have the opportunity to share the impact of adverse experience that you have encountered as a child or as an adult later on in your group. Okay, so again, James, you can do the odd ones and I'll do the even ones.
Number 1, decreased concentration.
Number 2, insomnia.
3, numbing.
Number 4, loss of interest.
5th, irritability.
Number 6, depression.
Number 7, dissociation.
Number 8, hypervigilance.
Number 9, little or no memories.
Number 10, self-destructive behaviors. So cutting, hitting, stabbing.
Number 11, substance abuse or addiction.
Number 12, eating disorders.
13, chronic pain or headaches.
14, emotional overwhelm.
15, panic attacks.
16, shame, self-criticism.
17, startle response.
18, intrusive memories.
19, nightmares, flashbacks.
And the last one, 20, hopelessness. Now, if there are other impacts that are not on the list, please feel free to add it and you can share during your group time. Now, since this is the first group sharing, the second term, so take a few minutes to get to know each other and welcome each other to the group. So you can share the name you want to go by your group, what you hope to accomplish in your journey to wholeness, coming home to the self, what you need from each other in order to feel safe in sharing your more vulnerable experiences and parts of self. So what we'll do is we'll go to our group for the rest of this session, so you can finish off by 8:45, and then the participants can be dismissed, and we'll ask the helpers to come back in the main room for the briefing, and also spend some time to share childhood and adult adverse experience that you have encountered. So you can review slides 49 to 54, and also share the possible impact of these adverse experiences on you and your relationship. So slides 55 to 57. And then question 7, how may these experiences and their impact block your journey to wholeness? So slides 37 to 47. And then lastly, what's it like to be aware of and to talk about your adverse experiences and how these may block your journey to wholeness. And then here's a slide with a lot of resources, videos, if you want to learn more about adverse childhood experiences. And then next week we'll talk about self and relational resources to wholeness, namely the stronger, wiser, kinder other or part of self. All right, so Rachel, could you put us in groups? So the Cantonese group, Mandarin group, and the English group.